Click that. Okay, there you go. It's starting now. All right. So Islam and Shalom, brothers and sisters. We're getting ready to get started with this. I'm gonna call it a semi-live stream. You know what I'm saying? We on here live now, but we're gonna post this up to the Moor Empire channel. And what we're gonna be talking about today on this 4th of July, this so-called Independence Day. And I'm calling it so-called Independence Day because some people had independence and some people did not. And our people, the so-called Negroes, Native Americans, right? We did not have independence in this country at that time. However, today our people is going to be shooting fireworks in the neighborhood where I'm at. I've been hearing fireworks ever since Juneteenth, right? And I've been hearing them every day, every night. And it's like, if we're celebrating independence, we need to question what were our people doing on July 4th, 1776, right? What were the Moors or the Israelites, or the so-called Negroes doing in this country at that time? We know full well we were on the plantation. We know that we were in shackles, being beaten, and of our women being raped and with no recourse, right? With no remedy. And yet we're going to celebrate a day where our oppressors had the victory over us. Now, what we're not doing here, we're not up here teaching hate. You know, people love to try to label us whenever we love ourselves as hating somebody. I'm not up here to say that we need to hate other ethnicities or nations, but rather we need to become competent and aware of what's going on. We need to stop celebrating things that are detrimental to us. So let's see. Oh, okay. Let me respond to somebody right quick. They asking how long. I honestly don't know how long we're gonna be on here, but I don't know. I'll be on here like an hour, maybe an hour and a half. Yeah, probably hour and a half. So you can listen in while you're riding. You can listen while you ride. Okay. All right. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull up some of this documentation. See, I'll probably have to see if it'll let me do both at once. All right. Cool. So, uh, Andrew, what do you see on your screen right now?
What am I seeing? Okay, I'm seeing the Constitution of the United States.
Okay.
PowerPoint.
Do you still see me on the screen too, or you only see the Constitution?
I can see you. I can see myself as well.
Okay, all right. And one last thing, is the Constitution big enough for you to pretty much see easy, or is it like real small?
It's pretty big. It's at the top of the screen, and
All
you're
right,
at the
cool.
bottom.
All right, cool. So this is actually my first time recording the screen and the cameras on me as well as anybody else at the same time. It's usually like either or. All right, cool. So we'll start with this. Oh yeah, Shalom and Islam, brothers and sisters. So we're looking at this Constitution here. We're gonna get straight to it. Let's skip down to, I want to say, Article 1, Section 10, right? We can see. All right, so I think yeah, that's Brother Lee on here also. All right, so we on here. This we got Brother Andrew. I'm calling everybody brother, but you just want to say Andrew or Lee, that's fine. And by the way,
Oh,
Solomon. Some people know me as Shalomar, but Shalomar is just an ancient uh, Hebrew for Solomon. So I'm just trying to keep it simple. All right. So let me enlarge that. So you see right here, we're looking at the Constitution, Article 1, Section 10. I'm try to zoom in on that part. It says no state. So just FYI, we know a state is California, Tennessee, Texas, Florida, etc., right? What you may or may not know is that a state is short for nation state. A lot of our people don't know that these states are actually different nations. We've been programmed to believe that all of these states are one nation called the United States of America. That's not actually correct. These are nation states. So, for example, in 1948, when they founded that nation state of Israel, you see, you'll hear them talk about the nation of Israel or the state of Israel. Well, a nation and a state is pretty much the same thing. So that's why when we just had this Roe v. Wade overturned, you have what's called states' rights. And with states' rights, a state can determine how they want to interpret the Constitution when it comes to whether a woman should have the right to abortion or not. So if we were one nation linked together, how do we have all of these different laws from state to state? Because these states are really nation states. So, but here, Article 1, Section 10, it says no state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque and reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts. So we're going to pause right there. If you look in your wallet, unless all you got is credit and debit cards, and you have what you call money, what do you have in there, right? Are you going to see gold and silver?
No.
You ain't going to see no gold and silver. And the only
No.
gold I got is a real little bit, right? Basically my ring, right? Not wearing it now, but that's not the only gold pretty much I have on my person. With that being said, gold and silver is supposed to be our money. But when you look at our so-called money, it's Federal Reserve notes, right? You read your $1 or $5 note, and I'm making an effort to call it a note because it's not money, right? Federal Reserve is not part of the government. They have made you think they're part of the government, but the Federal Reserve is no more federal than Federal Express or FedEx that deliver your packages. See? But they play word games. So now, why does this matter to us? What the world does gold and silver and Federal Reserve notes have to do with us being independent or not independent on 4th of July? Our people are oppressed in many ways, but one of the ways is economic. So gold and silver is the best form of money for many reasons. But the one main reason is this: it's durable, it has intrinsic value. Everybody inherently knows that gold is valuable. But guess what? The government can't print it up. So you can't print gold. You either have it or you don't. But this paper fiat currency, you can print it up. So here's what's going on. The Federal Reserve Bank will print up money and they will quote unquote lend that to the other banks. Banks such as SunTrust, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, you understand, First Horizon, whoever you may bank with, US Bank. And when they print their money up and lend it to them at either 0% interest right now or a very low interest rate, then that bank will turn around and lend it to you for a so-called mortgage for a house or for a loan for a car. But guess what? You have to work to pay it back with interest. So when you have to work to pay back some monopoly money that they just printed, there's no way that you can earn the money faster than they can print it. You see? So then if you have to work to earn something that they can just print off a printing press, then you're trying to compete with somebody you will never be able to compete with because it's monopoly money. But not only do they lend it to us and charge interest, they print this money and they purchase stocks in corporations on Wall Street, right? The same Wall Street they tell you should invest in if you want to be able to grow your wealth. Well, question: how am I going to afford to risk my hard-earned money that I earn with my blood, sweat, and tears, whereas they can just print it up and they can buy the same stocks as me? It makes no sense whatsoever. So the real reason that we're looking at this Article 1, Section 10 is because violation of this law in the Constitution is the real reason for inflation, the real reason why not just so-called Negroes, right, but really everybody in this country is suffering from inflation. So you see how the gas prices keep going up, right? You go to buy some gas now, it's getting higher and higher. The last I heard in California, the gas price was like $6.50. Now, brother Lee, if you were able to respond right now, because I know you told me you was riding or driving or something, but what was the last gas price you saw in California?
Um, like 780 something.
Wow, 780 something.
Yeah.
So the last gas price that he saw, because he used to stay out there, $7 and 80 some cents per gallon. In other parts of the country, like where I'm at, uh, it's like $5 or something, depending on whether it's regular or premium. But these prices
Yeah.
are outrageous. So is it that the prices of your gas and your groceries is going up, or is it that the value of your money or your so-called money is going down? You see, the more of this stuff they print up, the more of it that they type into your bank account. Because when they type amounts in there for these loans you get, they don't even have to print it. They literally just type it into the bank and say, hey, here's your credit. Here's your money. The more they do that, then the lower the value of this fiat currency goes and the less you can buy with it. Put that on top of the fact that Joe Biden, the so-called president right now, because he's the president of the United States of America Incorporated, all right? He's the president of a corporation, not the president of the actual organic land, the United States that we live on. His decisions are making inflation be even worse than it would be anyway. So now let's go to, give me 1 second here. I'm going to try to switch this screen a little bit so I can show it maybe a little bit clearer. So give me 1 second. Yeah, 1 second. All right. So right now what I'm doing, I'm going to try to zoom in on this as much as possible. This is a letter that was written by Taj Tariq Bey. Taj Tariq Bey is a grand sheik for the Moor's Order of the Round Table. You may or may not have heard of him, but nonetheless, he's been teaching for approximately 50 years. So what I'm going to do is zoom in on this document so we can study what he sent to President Barack Obama on August 4th, 2011. Now it says up here, the Moorish National Republic, Moorish divine and national movement of the world. The first thing I want to bring out, as soon as you try to say you're a Moor or you try to do anything that's going to help our people, you always have these naysayers who try to call you a sovereign citizen or a terrorist or some other type of negative and criminal word. But what we gonna do, we gonna look at the facts of the matter, and we gonna look and see what he actually wrote in this document, and we gonna see that it's crystal clear that what he wrote is true. Now, here it says United States of America, Honorable President Barack Obama, and this is from August 4th, 2011. That means that these presidents, including President Obama, they know who we are because our people have put them on notice of who we are. Now, why does it matter that you say you're a Moor, or more importantly, at least that you're not Negro, Black, and colored? What we're going to find out today is Negro, Black, and colored is not a nationality, and it is a badge of slavery. So let's read here. It says, greetings from the Moorish nation, the aboriginal natural people of the land. The international proclamation, this international proclamation is made on behalf of all the aboriginal Moors or Moors dwelling on the inherited terrestrial lands of our forefathers, of our foremothers and forefathers, being northwest of Mexico / Northwest Africa / North America, the North Gate, also referred to as the continental United States, North America. It says this affidavit is made as public notice to the President of the United States of North America and to the honorable nations of the earth, and stands to acknowledge all the enlightened Moors who have regained consciousness of their consanguinity. All right, consanguinity basically means your bloodline. right? Sanguine comes from a Latin word that's dealing with your blood. So our nationality is determined by our bloodline, not just by where we were born or where our quote unquote citizenship is at. Then it says, noting an awareness of the miscreant misclassifications. So miscreant is basically another word for criminal, and misclassification means you labeling somebody as something that they're not. And it says, and misnomers, meaning you putting the wrong name on people. Socialized as the colonial orientation brands. So here we go. So when you think of a brand name, you might think of Nike or Pepsi, Coke, you understand? Reebok, those are brands. Well, guess what? Negro, colored, black, and African American, and also Ethiopians, Puerto Ricans, and Jamaicans, etc., etc. All of those are brand names. So if somebody puts a brand name on you, it's denoting that you are their property, but not only that, that you are legally less than a human being. You're less than an actual man or woman. Now, in reality,
Yeah.
we know that all these people we name are indeed human beings or living souls. But politically and legally, it classifies you as less than an actual man or a woman. So that's a problem because if that was going on during slavery, it's one thing. But if we still calling ourselves that today, then we're holding on to badges of slavery, which lead us right back to how we were at so-called Independence Day, July 4th, 1776. These are the brands, let me see, except for like African American. I don't believe they was calling us that yet. But Negro, colored, and black is how they legally put us into slavery, right? Meaning it was legal to keep these people enslaved. All right, let's keep going. For the sake of time, I'm gonna skip on down. This document is a 4-page document. Uh, you might be able to find it on RV Bay Publications, but you can definitely find this at enforcetheconstitution.org. Uh, that is not my website, but you got some good brothers and sisters over there that's putting in work, and you can download this PDF and many others from that site. So, with that being said, let me keep going down. What we're going to talk about is whether we United States citizens or not. All right, because most of us think that we are. What we don't understand is that a U.S. citizen legally is a corporation or a corporate person. So, give me one quick moment. All right. So, here we go. I've been having a slight issue. One second. I got to pull up the right screen. Okay, I believe that's it. All right, so hopefully on this screen you can see up here where it says Legal Information Institute. Y'all see that?
Yeah.
All right. This is Cornell
I
Law.
don't see it just yet.
Oh, you don't see it yet? Hold on. All right, I'll
No, I
read
see it
it.
now. I see it now.
Okay, cool. So right here we are at law.cornell.edu, and this is the Cornell Law School website. We're gonna zoom in to look at this legal definition of legal person or just person. All right, so Andrew, if you can see that, could you read this part where it says overview and like these lines right here?
All right, overview. It says legal person refers to a human or a non-human entity that is treated as a person for limited legal purposes. Typically, a legal person can sue and be sued, own property, and enter into contracts.
All right, thank you. So the first thing we need to understand is that when we hear person in the street, we might normally think it's talking about a human being. But actually in the law, the legal definition, it can refer to a human or a non-human entity. That word entity is like a corporation like Walmart or Costco or Sam's Club, right? Microsoft, etc., etc. Or it can be like a LLC, like a limited liability corporation, a general partnership. Anything like that is considered an entity. Also, if you have a trust fund, normally we think of trust funds that's for people that's rich, right? but anybody can have a trust. Even if all you have is $5,000, you can put that in a trust fund and set it up for your child or whoever you want to give it to. So a trust is also a legal person, also an estate. If you own a home or some real estate and you want to leave that to your heirs or to your family, that would be considered your estate. And for legal purposes, that's also considered a person. So remember that word person. All right, now we're going to scroll down a little bit more. We see here uh, business law. All right, so Brother Lee, if you could you read here this section, business law, this section that I'm highlighting?
Legal person is used frequently within the field of business law. Laws deal with businesses, organizations, i.e., corporations, partnerships, limited liability companies, etc. Often legal person such as small capacity business.
We're getting a little bit of background noise from somewhere, but that's fine. So we heard most of it and we can see all of it. And I'm gonna go through that again to make sure I
Sorry
get
about that.
the key points. So what both of y'all just read, you just read the overview and the business law. Now the reason we're looking at this is because regular law allows for non-human entities to be considered as persons. And then business law, which is what we deal with every day when we're trading these Federal Reserve notes, also known as commercial paper. So I know I'm throwing a lot of terms out here at once, but just understand commercial paper essentially is what people on Wall Street deal with and what bankers deal with. What they have not told us is that when you trade and deal with Federal Reserve notes, you are considered an expert in commercial paper. But question, from K through 12, meaning kindergarten through 12th grade, if they teach you anything about commercial paper or negotiable instruments, did you learn anything about commercial paper? Unless you went to law school, the answer is no. Or at least you had to go to like banking, study banking in college or something. But they consider you an expert in commercial paper. That is a deceptive thing to do. So in business law, a legal person is used frequently within the field of business law. Laws dealing with business organizations, corporations, partnerships, limited liability companies, or LLC. As well as non-human business entities. Now, here's the question. How can I say, or anyone say, that we're not U.S. citizens, but it seems like we're living in the U.S., right? We were born here, so it would sound strange to say that we're not a U.S. citizen. Well, we're going to prove otherwise. Just a moment. All right, so now I've pulled back up this document written by Taj Tariq Bey, and it says here, it says just sanguinis. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, either juice or just sanguinis, which is a Latin term dealing with the right of blood. It says is derived from Moorish Latin and means right of blood. It stands as a rule in jurisprudence that a child's citizenship is determined by its parents' citizenship. Now, it says just sanguinis citizenship is not determined by one's place of birth, but by having a parent's by blood, right? A parent or parents' blood, who are citizens of the nation. Just sanguinis rights are mandated by international treaty. So this is international or global law that we're dealing with. Then it says with citizenship, definitions imposed by the international community. So no one nation can make laws on what determines whether you have nationality or not. This is international, right? So just like in the United States, you can go from one state to the next. Well, worldwide, you can go from one country or nation to the next. Let's go on down. It says here, there have been several occasions where many European colonizers or immigrants residing on the American continent have professed ignorance about who the Moors are. So these people pretend like they don't know who the Moors are, what the Moorish Empire is, and where it is geographically located. Others feign an absolute ignorance. That means they pretending to be absolutely ignorant of the undeniable and vital parts and influences that the Emperor of Morocco and the Moors played in their very existence as an entity nation on this North Gate continent, right? So I'm gonna just tell you, the Moor Empire is here, right here. This so-called United States is here, but the elite, those who control this corporate government, which is a corporation, they pretend that they don't know this. And then any of our people who stand up to say that this is true, they try to label you as a terrorist or a conspiracy theorist or just a fool, like somebody that's a quack. But we're going to get this right knowledge today that shows these are the absolute facts. And by the way, on this channel where I'm uploading this, I have a video up here that shows who the Moors are from the 1936 Webster's Dictionary. So if you want to search this Moor Empire channel, look for the video where it says Webster's Dictionary 1936 or something like that, where I go step by step showing you in the dictionary that they gave us at school. And it's an older version. We all familiar with Webster's Dictionary. It tells you that we the Moors in there. So how can the dictionary be a conspiracy theory unless the folks who wrote the dictionary is also a liar? So let's give them enough rope to hang themselves with, right? If they say we lying, then that means they liars too. Let's skip on down. So I would like to read this document in its entirety, but it's so thick and heavy that to explain this fully is perhaps more time than we want to be on here right now. But I at least want to do a little something while it's this so-called Independence Day. Let's look here at about this box right here where it says "as the government." It says, "as the government of the United States of America is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion." Now I'm gonna stop right there. Because I'm somebody who believes in the Bible. But guess what? The fact remains that this statement is true. This country was not founded on the Christian religion as they want you to think. So this is why I need our people to not be so hung up on religion. Just because you believe the Bible doesn't mean that you have to believe a lie that this country was founded on the Bible. It was not. Yes, you see biblical stuff all throughout different constitutions of different states. But the fact remains, the real founders of this country, well, what we're going to read right here. As it has in itself no character of enmity, enmity means hatred. So this country originally had no hatred or enmity against the laws, religion, or tranquility of Muslimin. Right? We're going to see what they mean by Muslimin or Muslimin. And as the said states never entered into any war or act of hostility against the Mohammedan nation. This is talking about Muslims or Muslims, right? Or Islam. The fact remains that the Moors were practicing the Muslim belief system, which was not solely based on belief, but for simplicity, I'm just calling it that. And it says, it is declared by the parties that no protest arising from religious opinions shall ever produce an interruption of the harmony existing between the two countries. In other words, the United States used to be friends with a Muslim or Muslim nation or empire, which is the Moor Empire, known today as Morocco. So you got corporate nation states, and then you got the actual organic nation states. But for simplicity, it's talking about Morocco. And that's why it says here, now that I have reaffirmed our in full life presence. The reason he says in full life is because if you're labeled Negro, Black, or colored, you are a legally dead person. A corporation, such as a business that you can start, again, like a Microsoft, Costco, or Sam's Club, that's just ink on paper. A corporation is literally a stack of papers. So you can go to the Secretary of State, whatever state you live in, and you can pay whatever fee, whether it's $100, $300, $400, and you can start a corporation today. All you have to do is fill out the articles of incorporation, which is basically a stack of papers. And whatever you call that corporation, it will legally be considered a legal person, just like you and me, with the exception of it has no body and no soul. So it has to have an actor or somebody who speaks on behalf of it. But what they didn't want you and I to know is that as long as we consider Negro, Black, Colored, and African American, we are corporate citizens while we thinking that we're real human beings or living soul citizens. That's the reason why our people still suffer oppression. So, for example, when George Floyd got killed, which that was obviously a criminal act, but they were saying Black Lives Matter. Well, unfortunately, guess what? Black lives don't matter because if you're black, you're not legally considered a human being. You see? This is the real reason why Philando Castile got shot 7 times by Geronimo Yanez under color of law in front of his wife and daughter, and that cop got away with it. Because when you kill people that's legally less than human beings, you can get away with these heinous crimes. So instead of us saying Black Lives Matter, what we need to say, we don't want civil rights, we want human rights. You understand? Living soul of men and women, not of corporate branded person. Is that making sense so far?
Makes sense.
All right. What about you, Lee? That making sense?
Uh,
All right. So I hope uh when we upload this that it makes sense to all the people who would watch. Just give me one quick second. All right, so let's continue. Yeah, it says, let it be known to the corporate United States of America, and that is what it is because I've looked it up myself. You can find this information on Dun and Bradstreet, which is a corporate credit website that globally tracks the credit profiles of companies around the world. Just like you have personal credit with Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, corporations can have credit reports at Dun and Bradstreet or DNB.com. And I'm not trying to advertise for them. I'm just trying to show you some places where you can go and learn that the state you live in, so-called live in, is actually a corporation. And while it's not a crime to start a corporation, it is a crime when you try to make us think your company is a real nation or a state. That's what makes it a crime. So let it be known to the corporate United States of America and its many enclaves and or corporate territories doing business as the state of, or it could be state of Tennessee, state of Delaware, state of Nevada, etc., and or as the Commonwealth of whatever name, its many registered corporations and its agents and officers at all, the following. We Moors of Northwestern Mexico, that's the so-called North America, have never been citizens of the United States of America, nor can we ever be citizens of that foreign entity. So pay close attention. I'm not telling you that we're not nationals or that we don't have a right to live on this land that's called North America. No, we definitely have a right to live here, a just sanguineous right, a right by blood to live here. But we are not citizens of that foreign corporation called the United States of America Incorporated. How can a living man or woman be a citizen of a company? Can you be a citizen of Toys R Us or of Disneyland? You see? So we can no more be citizens of this United States corporation than we can be a citizen of Costco or the Nike factory or Federal Express or Microsoft. It makes no sense. But let's continue. It says, as we Moors of the Moorish Empire under the political classification today, Moorish American nationals, so that's our political classification, as affirmed in the original 13th Article of Amendment, it says we Moors can never be citizens, members of any of the European colonies, because that's what that means. Original 13th Amendment, Section 12 of the United States Republic Constitution states. So one moment, I'm going to pull up the current 13th Amendment so you can see what it says today. Then we're going to come back and look at what it originally said. All right, so can everybody see this screen? I'm on Google here looking at the 13th Amendment.
Huh?
All right. So I'm gonna ask Brother Lee, could you read here what it says for this 13th Amendment?
Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime, whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to the jurisdiction.
All right, thank you. So this is the amendment that technically freed us from slavery after the Civil War, right? So I'm definitely not saying that we don't need this amendment, but we're gonna look at it closely so we can understand the consequences and the oppression that we still face, even though this amendment did free us from physical slavery. When it says neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, the first thing I want to bring attention to is that involuntary servitude is slavery. So, for example, if I hire somebody to be my servant, let's say that I'm well off and I can afford to have a butler and a maid, and I can afford to have somebody who's gonna come cut my yard and trim all my bushes every week, right? Those would be considered my servants. But it's nothing wrong with them being servants because another word for servant is employee, which means I have to pay them for their labor. So if they agree to cut my yard and trim my bushes every week for a certain amount of money or pay, then that is voluntary servitude. That's what we call today an employee, right? But involuntary servitude meaning if I kidnap them and force them to cut my yard every week, and then I kidnap somebody and make them my butler, and then I kidnap the maid as well. And now not only do I kidnap the maid and make her clean my house, then I rape her like they did our women during slavery, because rape was a part of it, right? So they talk about sex trafficking today and sex slavery. Well, guess what? When our women were on the plantation, sometime massa would snatch her from picking cotton and rape her in the house or in the outhouse. So our women had to suffer that too. And unfortunately, some of our men were castrated and sexually abused as well. But neither slavery nor involuntary servitude is a double tongue. That's double talking because slavery is involuntary servitude. So why are they playing games with words like that? Because what they want to do is leave the door open for something called voluntary servitude. When you agree to be a Negro, to be labeled as black or colored or African American or even Ethiopian. A lot of people don't understand that Ethiopian is not a proper title either. They are Cushites, they are Moors, they may have some other proper names that I don't know about, but you get the picture. Voluntary servitude is when you agree to be a corporate citizen of the United States of America Incorporated. That makes you a slave. But instead of a physical slave, you're a corporate slave. That is the real reason why they can take taxes from you and you don't even know what the money is being used for. That's why they can make you pay all sorts of fines and fees, which makes no sense because you have volunteered to be their slave without knowing it. When your mother and father signed you up for that birth certificate, they were signing you up for slavery. But the hospital didn't tell them that's what they were signing you up for. So therefore, it is a voidable contract because you were a minor, so you definitely didn't agree to it, and your parents did not know what they were signing, right? So that's getting somebody to sign a contract under false pretenses. But let's keep going. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except, is the key word, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. So it looks good, doesn't it? But what did they do? As soon as slavery was over, they started making all sorts of new laws so that everything that a so-called Negro would do would be a crime. They made it where you could walk by somebody's yard and a piece of their fence could be broken. If you pick up that piece of wood from their fence off the ground and keep walking, they would say that you stole that piece of wood and now you got to be in jail or prison for like 6 months or a year. And while you in jail or prison, guess what? You a slave who has to work for free. You can have your back whipped just like you did on the plantation. So after that, they had Jim Crow laws. And then today, I'm going to say dating back to probably the last 40 years or so, they've had what's called the new Jim Crow, which is mass incarceration. And our sister Michelle Alexander wrote a book called The New Jim Crow that exposes that new form of slavery where they criminalize activity that so-called black people do. And the same activity by so-called white people, they let them go free. For example, if you use crack, cocaine, or rocks, you can get years in jail for dealing with those kind of drugs. But the powder they use to make the crack and the rocks, which was usually what the so-called white man would have, he would have way more powder than you would have rocks. But he would get less time in prison because they want to make sure that whatever he did gets less time because he's not the one they really want to enslave. So they never wanted to let us free from slavery. So what they had to do was to find a way to criminalize your activity. So guess what? A felon is the new slave. That's why I would urge all brothers and sisters to do their very best to stay free out of prison. You understand? Stay free out of the prison. When you go to prison, you are a legal slave. Now, with that being said, let's go back to the document where we were just reading, and we're going to read the 13th Amendment, what it used to say. You understand? Meaning the original 13th Amendment that they did not teach you about in public school. Let me see. Wait a minute. Yeah, over here. All right. So, Brother Andrew, can you see this section right here in this box where it says Section 12? See, he's still muted on there. So I'll tell you what. So I'll go ahead and read it myself. Section 12. So remember, this is part of the original 13th Amendment. It says, the traffic in slaves with Africa is hereby forever prohibited on pain of death. All right, so that's good. They're saying they give you the death penalty if you try to bring any more slaves from Africa. Then it says, and the forfeiture of all the rights and property of persons engaged therein. All right, so that's good too. But watch what they say next. And the descendants of Africans shall not be citizens. In other words, if your bloodline, if your bloodline is from somebody from Africa, that means you can never be a citizen of the United States. So guess what that means? We can't be citizens. Now, some people would argue, no, brother, the 14th Amendment has done away with that. The 14th Amendment says you can be a citizen. We're going to get to that because that 14th Amendment is deception. But we're looking at the 13th Amendment, which is telling us clearly, even though slavery was so-called over, the descendants of Africans shall not be citizens. So if you believe or know that your ancestors were brought to this country on slave ships from West Africa, they telling you right here you can never be a citizen. So now let's see if that's still true today. The same social and political position, excluding descendants of Africans from United States citizenship, has been perpetually held firm by the occupying Europeans on our land, North America. Their contentious position was also reaffirmed and confirmed by the Supreme Court ruling in the citizenship and status based Dred Scott case of 1857 AD. Now, we know that the Supreme Court just overturned Roe v. Wade. Well, we're going to look at this case from 1857, and I have no evidence that this has ever been overturned, which means it's still in effect right now. So it states, in the month of March In the year 1857 AD, the Supreme Court of the United States, led by Chief Justice Roger B. Taney, declared that all blacks, slaves as well as free. Understand, you could be a enslaved so-called Negro, or you could be a free man. It still applies to you. Were not and could never be citizens of the United States. All right. All right. So I'm restarting up here. We had a few technical difficulties, but we're pretty much almost done anyway. So I appreciate the brothers and whoever else was on here listening as well. And we're gonna try to keep this up, doing this more regularly going forward. So let's continue. It says, led by Chief Justice Roger B. Taney, declared that all blacks, slaves as well as free, were not and could never be citizens of the United States. All right. So it seems like Brother Andrew might have been able to get back on. Then it says, thus the descendants of Africans shall not be citizens. So if you are a descendant of anybody who came over here from Africa, and you know they talking about us, they're not talking about Charlize Theron, okay? The woman who looks like a Caucasoid, and basically she is, but she came from South Africa. But they don't label them as African Americans, do they? The only people they label as black or African American is us, because that is not talking about your skin complexion. It is a political status, a corporate dead citizen. So we reject, we refute, we repudiate that status today and forever, because it never was true, nor shall it ever be. But if we agree to it by silence, and in law the term for silence is acquiescence, that means you volunteer to be that corporate slave unless you make it known publicly that that is not who you are. So with that being said, the Dred Scott case agrees with the original 13th Amendment. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull up, just going to do a plain Google search for Dred Scott versus Sanford, right? Now, it says here, Dred Scott v. Sanford. Let me see, they had one of these on history. Let me see, they got it in a lot of places. Let's see. A case in which the court decided that slaves who were descendants of American slaves were not citizens in the United States. So this is not something that's hidden. This is not something that's hidden. This is common knowledge. Now let me get another one. It says here on the archives.gov, the decision of Scott v. Sanford, considered by many legal scholars to be the worst ever rendered by the Supreme Court. Now they say it was overturned. So this kind of stuff I'm looking for. I knew that if I looked a little bit, they was going to say it was overturned. So let's get that. They love to make you think that the evil they've done to us is always overturned. But yet when you look at how our people are treated, you can see that it's not overturned, because they still treating you like the same slave Negro that you were classified as at that time. So now, let me see. Let me look for the word for that excerpt in this article. Okay, I knew that's what they were going to say, but that's all right, because I don't expect them to be honest. You cannot expect people who have enslaved you to be totally honest about the methods they use to enslave you, right? Or our sister Asada Shakur said it best, and I'm paraphrasing her, but she said, no one is going to give you the information you need to overthrow them, all right? So they're not going to tell you the truth about how they made you a slave, because if they do, that might show you how to get out of slavery. Now it says here, on March 6, 1857, Chief Justice Roger B. Taney read the majority opinion of the court, meaning the Supreme Court, which stated that enslaved people were not citizens of the United States and therefore could not expect any protection from the federal government or the courts. The opinion also stated that Congress had no authority to ban slavery from a federal territory. This is that same Supreme Court that people are so shocked about today. This definitely was a wicked judgment. So understand that just because their so-called Supreme Court of the land says something doesn't mean that it's righteous. It just means they said it. But let's keep going. This decision moved the nation a step closer to the Civil War. Now, it says the decision of Scott v. Sanford, considered by many legal scholars to be the worst ever rendered by the Supreme Court, was overturned by the 13th and 14th Amendments to the Constitution. We're going to see if that's true or not. Which abolished slavery and declared all persons born in the United States to be citizens of the United States. Notice it said all persons born. Remember, we looked at the word person, which can be a human or a non-human entity, a corporation. If they're still labeling you Negro, Black, Colored, and African American, which they are, because I'm sure you got a census letter in the mail within the last year, and your choices was not Moor. You didn't have a choice to put you as an Israelite or a Moor or anything honorable, but you had to choose between Black, White, Pacific Islander, and a bunch of other nonsense. Those are corporate statuses. Now, they have the nerve to say that this was overturned by the 13th Amendment, but we just read the original 13th Amendment, which also stated that if you are a descendant of an African, you can never be a citizen. Do you see the hypocrisy? So then they shifted a little bit and give us another 13th Amendment publicly to take that little part out, allegedly. But yet by the treatment of Philando Castile, Alton Sterling, Tamir Rice, Trayvon Martin, you understand? The list goes on and on. You see that they still treating our people like we are not citizens. That's because we're not. Let's keep going. 14th Amendment. They say the 14th Amendment also overturned this. So we're going to look at the 14th Amendment. We're going to break that down, and then we're going to end this study for today. Let's get that. One moment. All right. So now I have pulled up the 14th Amendment, and it states in Section 1, all persons born. Again, that word person can be a corporation, just like Walmart, just like Costco, right? Negro, Black, and Colored. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. We're going to find out where the true jurisdiction of the United States of America Incorporated is. Because remember, it's not talking about this land we live on. It is a corporation. We're going to find the location of the United States and how big or small it really is. Then you're going to understand this deceptive amendment right here. And subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. Now watch this here. If the 14th Amendment, which they passed, it's saying here, well, actually, no, they didn't pass it in 17 nothing. They passed this in like 1868, I believe, approximately. So they passed this in the 1800s after the Civil War. Then if you were born before that, what were you a citizen of then? I'm talking about for Caucasian people now, because they were not in slavery. Some of them were indentured servants, but they were not slaves. What were they a citizen of? You see, that is the secret. How were they free before the 14th Amendment? The citizenship that made George Washington free, Thomas Jefferson free, that is the God-given, inalienable birthrights from your creator. That's what you really want to make you free. And they did not give us that level of citizenship through the 14th Amendment. That's why they made you a corporate person. Then it says, no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. But yet we see our people who are denied due process on a regular basis. We see our people who have been treated unequally for decades and decades after the 1800s. All through the 1900s, our people were treated like garbage, right? With Jim Crow laws. So what are they talking about? We're going to expose the deception of this 14th Amendment with this corporate person right now by looking up the United States to see what it really is and to see what its jurisdiction really is. Then you're going to understand what type of citizen they're talking about. So just a moment. All right, so before we finish up here, we're going to look at this United States so we can understand the deceptive nature of the 14th Amendment. We're going to expose what it means when it says that all persons are now citizens of the United States if they are subject to its jurisdiction. 28 U.S. Code, Section 3002. We're going to go on down, scroll on. And yes, we right back here at Quarantine Law School. Let's see. Before we go all the way down to the United States, we're going to look at this word person again. It says person. The definition includes a natural person. Yeah, fat chance of that. Including an individual Indian, which is also another corporate misnomer, a corporation, a partnership, an unincorporated association, a trust, or an estate, or any other public or private entity. That means a non-living stack of papers that the government acknowledges as a legal person. Again, if you want to start a business, that's fine. Start a corporation. But it's a problem when you start a company for profit and you try to fool me and make me think that that's the real government of the land. It is not. And you cannot be a citizen of a corporation. Point blank, period. So that's how we know that the 13th and 14th Amendments are not doing exactly what they state, especially the 14th Amendment. It's a lie. So let's keep going. It says here in subsection 15, United States means a federal corporation. So do we all see that? A federal corporation. This is the citizenship that the 14th Amendment is talking about for all these persons, namely Negro, blacks, colors, African Americans, and guess what? So-called white people too. White is also a corporate person, but even though it's a corporate person, they get treated better than those labeled black because white, if you look in their dictionary, it means innocent, pure. It means they're the owners of the land, whereas black means evil, dirty, etc., etc., negative meanings. So we also suffer from what's called connotative linguistics, right? Where instead of going with the actual meaning of the word, we go with what we think the word means. All right, so a federal corporation, that's the United States. Then section B says an agency, department, commission, board, or other entity of the United States, or an instrumentality of the United States. So this United States corporation that it's talking about is the 10-mile square, Washington, D.C. So give me a moment. I'm going to pull up this document from the United States Senate. So again, this is another 4-page document called James Traficant's U.S. bankruptcy speech. I'm going to read some of this just so we can prove what we just read about the United States Corporation. And then somebody got a comment or a question or whatever, they can ask or share it, and then we'll close this out. It says, the bankruptcy of the United States. United States Congressional Record, March 17, 1993, Volume 33, page H-1303. Speaker, Representative James Traficant Jr., Ohio, addressing the House. So this is a congressional record that you can actually look up. All right. Mr. Speaker, we are here now in chapter 11. So chapter 11 is bankruptcy. They got chapter 7, chapter 11, and chapter 13, right? Those are forms of bankruptcy. Members of Congress are official trustees presiding over the greatest reorganization of any bankrupt entity in world history, the U.S. government. How can the U.S. government be a bankrupt entity? It's simple, because it's the United States of America Incorporated. So the 14th Amendment citizenship is talking about this right here. So I ask you, do you really want to be a citizen of a bankrupt corporation? And can that bankrupt corporation give you freedom? It cannot. What it can do is give you Federal Reserve notes that actually put you more in debt because they're not real money. Let's keep going. We are setting forth, hopefully, a blueprint for our future. There are some who say it is a coroner's report that will lead to our demise. A coroner's report is like an autopsy. All right. So he's saying this could be the death of the United States. Let me zoom in just a little more, make it a little easier for everybody to see. Okay, let me back out a little bit. All right, there we go. It says it is an established fact that the United States federal government has been dissolved by the Emergency Banking Act of March 9th, 1933. Then it says declared by President Roosevelt being bankrupt and insolvent, HJR, which stands for House Joint Resolution 192, 73rd Congress. Session June 5th, 1933, joint resolution to suspend the gold standard and abrogate the gold clause, dissolved the sovereign authority of the United States and the official capacities of all United States governmental offices, officers, and departments, and is further evidence that the United States federal government exists today in name only. Do you see that? The United States federal government exists today in name only. So this representative, James Trafficking, he said this at the Congress. So it's not a conspiracy theory, it is the fact. Now watch this here. He says the receivers of the United States bankruptcy are the international bankers. In other words, the United States owes the bank, just to make it plain. Via the the United Nations, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund, sometimes referred to as the IMF, all United States offices, officials, and departments are now operating within a de facto status. When they hear Moors or indigenous people say that this is a corporate de facto government, which means they're a government in fact, but they're not a government in truth. De jure means by law, meaning honorable, the real government. De facto means you just the government because you're the only one that's here and you got guns and weapons to make people fear you. Their police force and their military is the only reason they're the government right now. Because if you don't do what they say, they can try to lock you up. So they're a de facto government, but they're not the true government. Who said this? Their own people at the Congress from this document we're reading right now. And it says, in name only under emergency war powers, with the constitutional Republican form of government now dissolved. The receivers of the bankruptcy have adopted a new form of government for the United States. This new form of government is known as a democracy. This is why your original Pledge of Allegiance used to say, I pledge allegiance to the United States of America, so on and so forth. And then it'll say, and to the republic for which it stands. So how do we go from being a republic to a democracy? It's telling you right here, because of this bankruptcy. So the democracy is de facto and is fake. Let's keep going. And by the way, this is not to support the Republican Party, because they're also under a corporate government as well. But I'm just showing you the democracy is even worse, because it was supposed to be a republic in the beginning, right? Being an established socialist communist order under a new governor for America. Democracy is intended to lead to socialism and communism. And that's why you see one by one your rights being taken away more and more. Trying to force you to take a shot. You understand? Trying to force you to do this, force you to do that. Let me skip on down here. Gold and silver. As we talked about fiat currency a little bit earlier, in this speech, he also said gold and silver were such a powerful money during the founding of the United States of America. Notice it's a lowercase u, lowercase s, capital A. United States of America, that the founding fathers declared that only gold or silver coins can be money in America. That's why we read the Constitution, Article 1, Section 10, no state shall make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts. So these Federal Reserve notes is unlawful money. They love to call it fiat currency. That's just a nice way of saying unlawful money, meaning it's against the law. And that's why inflation keeps going up more and more. And with President Joe Biden in office, it's going up even faster. And your money is going to be worth less and less because it's not real money. So the founding fathers declared that only gold or silver coins can be money in America. Since gold and silver coinage were heavy and inconvenient for a lot of transactions, they were stored in banks and a claim check was issued as a money substitute. People traded their coupons as money or currency. Currency is not money, but a money substitute. Redeemable currency must promise to pay a dollar equivalent in gold or silver money. Federal Reserve notes, FRNs, make no such promises and are not money. This is a congressional representative who stated this. You see? Look, the Congress. A Federal Reserve note is a debt obligation of the federal United States government, meaning that United States corporation. This is their debt, not ours. So they're taxing you so you can pay their debt, not money. And they call it the national debt because they want to put that debt on the nationals, the more American nationals. Your true status is a national if you're indigenous to this land, not Negro, black, and colored. But they want to have a so-called national debt because they want the nationals to secretly be the ones to pay their debt. I'm going to read it again. A Federal Reserve note is a debt obligation of the federal United States government, not money. So it's not our debt. So in truth, you don't owe any money because you are the creditor. They've used your labor through your birth certificate, social security accounts and cards, marriage licenses, driver's licenses, traffic tickets. They trade these things. Look, court cases, they getting paid everywhere they can and trading you on Wall Street and on other stock exchanges like chattel. And the word chattel means personal property. But you can't own a human being. So what you got to do is deceptively turn him into a corporation, like the 14th Amendment has done. But since we never agreed to be their chattel or their property, look, we never volunteered for that servitude, then that is legal involuntary servitude, which is slavery. So they are breaking the 13th Amendment with their de facto corporate government, which they have created through the 14th Amendment. That is legal slavery that we never agreed to. That makes them criminals. So they need to pay their own debt. Let's see. It is essential that we comprehend the distinction between real money and paper money substitute. One cannot get rich by accumulating money substitutes. One can only get deeper into debt. We, the people, no longer have any money. Most Americans have not been paid any money for a very long time, perhaps not in their entire life. Now do you comprehend why you feel broke? Now do you understand why you are bankrupt along with the rest of the country? Because you're trying to pay their debt with their debt notes. So, with that being said, I could go on and on here. Anybody got any question? If you're still on, I know I have a few technical difficulties. If you got a question or a comment, and like I said, I plan to do this on a more regular basis. I hope this has been some edification and some knowledge and upliftment for our people today. This is why on the 4th of July, the only thing we have to celebrate is the fact that we have access to some knowledge and information, because they certainly did not set us free. Let's see. All right. All right. So that's good. Reading the comment here. Uh-huh. That's right. All right. So I appreciate that comment, Brother Andrew. And again, as Moors, look, as men and women, our principles are the principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. So we're not on here to hate anybody. Rather, we here just to speak the truth and knowledge, dealing with facts, right? Not belief systems, but just dealing with the facts as they are. So with that being said, I hope everybody have a good day, and I hope you use the rest of this so-called Independence Day to edify yourself and gain some more independence. So shalom, shalom, peace and love, Islam. And by the way, that means I, self, law, am master. That's all that means. All right, and have a good day.